the water in the body uh, will not be easily evaporated.
Not evaporated.
Uh,
Here, no, 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 not
become high
evaporated.
temperature.
Yes, when we say water has a high specific heat capacity, it actually means that every water molecule is sticking to another water molecule by means of lots of hydrogen bonds, individually being weak, but collectively making a very strong force. So when we want to heat up water, we will have to break those hydrogen bonds. So since we have lots of these hydrogen bonds, it will take a lot of time to break it. And this is an advantage for the bodies of living organisms because 70% to 90% of our body is water. And this will not raise the temperature of internal temperature of our body, no matter whatever the outside temperature is, because the amount of energy required to do that is immense. Okay. This is one benefit for us. And then there is another benefit, which is for all those animals who are living in the water bodies. For example, animals which are living inside water, so they can also live inside water without a danger of excessive elevation of temperature of the water or extremes of temperature. Like, for example, it's written that large bodies of water like lakes and oceans are slow to change temperature as the air temperature around them changes. अब अगर कोई ओशन है या सी है या रिवर है तो उसके अराउंड जितना भी एयर का टेम्परेचर हो, लेकिन वाटर का टेम्परेचर इतना नहीं फ्लक्चुएट करेगा, which will provide a stable habitat for all the marine and freshwater animals and plants. So this is an advantage. This, we would say that the high specific heat capacity of water is a property that is linked to its strong hydrogen bonds, number one, and it facilitates the maintenance of a constant, stable internal environment in our body, and also the maintenance of a constant temperature in the large bodies of water so as to provide a stable habitat for aquatic organisms. So this is how it is, right? Achha, and then there is another property. Alia, now you tell me about that property, which is the high latent heat of vaporization. Iska kya matlab hai?
It basically refers to the amount of energy which is required to change the state of the substance from liquid to a gas, or basically to vaporize it.
So do you think it requires a large amount of energy to change water or to vaporize water from liquid to gas?
Yes, Miss, it does considerably.
Yes. Okay, so then what is the connection between this property? हमने कह तो दिया कि ये बहुत अच्छी property है, but what is the advantage of this property on the life of living organisms?
Miss, it again gives the orgasm stability, and it prevents the substance from overheating, because one advantage of this is that it brings about cooling. It's a cooling mechanism. So it allows evaporation.
Exactly.
So the body temperature can be maintained. It does not overheat, and the enzymes aren't denatured. So metabolic reactions can happen at a steady rate.
No, you've mixed up two things, Alia. You know what? You've mixed up when you say enzymes are not denatured, तो ये तो property high specific heat capacity की थी. अच्छा, this is the mistake which all students make. Now see, don't mix up the property of high specific heat capacity with high latent heat of vaporization. इसका मतलब क्या है? कि it requires a very high amount of energy to change water or to evaporate water. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब क्या होगा, आपको एनर्जी बहुत ज्यादा चाहिए ना, तो एनर्जी आपने जब दे देंगे आप बहुत ज्यादा एनर्जी, तो वाटर चेंज हो जाएगा फ्रॉम लिक्विड टू गैस. अब जब ये चेंजिंग होगी तो ऑफ कोर्स देयर विल बी अ लॉस ऑफ एनर्जी, एंड दैट लॉस ऑफ एनर्जी विल रिजल्ट इन कूलिंग. ठीक है, तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि लेट्स से इफ आई एम लिविंग इन अ वेरी हॉट एनवायरनमेंट, ठीक है, और मुझे अपनी बॉडी को कूल डाउन करना है, सो द ओनली वे to cool down my body is to remove water from my body. ठीक है, पानी अगर बाहर निकलेगा तो water will be a medium जिससे कि heat बाहर निकलेगी, लेकिन अगर मैं बहुत ज्यादा पानी बाहर निकाल दूं तो I will be dehydrated. So this high latent heat of vaporization enables our body to get rid of the excessive heat in the form of losing water, but a very small volume of water. समझ आ रही है बात? कि हम heat lose करेंगे, हम heat lose करेंगे by sweating. The amount or the volume of sweat will be very less, but the amount of heat that we lose will be very high. And this is all attributed to the high latent heat of vaporization. See, if we read this paragraph very carefully, what does it say? Water has a relatively high latent heat of vaporization. This is a consequence of high specific heat capacity. ठीक है? We said कि वाटर को हीट करने में भी बड़ी एनर्जी लग रही है. क्यों? क्योंकि उसके पास बहुत सारे हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड्स है, तो हमको तोड़ने में एनर्जी लग रही है. अच्छा, हमने उसको हीट कर लिया and the water is boiling. Now, in order to change that boiling water into vapor, और भी ज्यादा एनर्जी चाहिए, क्योंकि अभी हमें और भी हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड्स ब्रेक करने, right? So what is your textbook saying? The fact that water molecules tend to stick to each other by hydrogen bonds means that relatively large amounts of energy are needed for vaporization to occur, because we want to break these hydrogen bonds before the molecules of water can escape as gas. So the energy, अब आपको वो energy जो चाहिए ना, वो आपने किसको transfer की? Water molecules को during vaporization. This energy will be this will result in a corresponding loss of energy from their surroundings, which therefore cool down. ठीक है? This is biologically important because it means that living organisms like us, we can use evaporation as a mechanism, just like in sweating or panting, in a manner that we will lose a lot of body heat, but we will lose a very less volume of water, thereby reducing the risk of dehydration. अब समझ आ रही है बात? जी आमना.
Yes.
Amna, did you understand this?
Yes, miss.
The yes miss shows that maybe you both of you have partly understood this. No?
No, miss, I understood it.
So you understand. Okay. And then not only when we sweat, cooling occurs, there is a mechanism inside plants, and you must have done this in O levels, that all plants transpire, right? Transpiration is the loss of water vapor through the aerial parts of the plants, which is the leaf. So जब plant transpire करते हैं, they also cool down. ठीक है? They also cool down because again वही वाली बात कि उसको water से gas में change करने के लिए बहुत सारी energy चाहिए. ठीक है? We need a lot of energy to convert liquid into gas. So this energy conversion will result in the loss of energy from the surroundings, and this loss of energy will produce cooling. तो same तरह की cooling जो है वो आपकी plants में भी होती है through transpiration. So this means that when we lose our body heat through sweating, or when the plants cool themselves down through transpiration, this is totally attributed to the property of high latent heat of vaporization. ठीक है? अच्छा, the reverse is true when water changes from liquid to ice. यानी water freeze भी तो करता है ना? This time the water molecules must lose a large amount of energy, making it less likely that the water will freeze. This is an advantage for aquatic organisms. It also makes it less likely that the bodies of living organisms which have a high water content will freeze. Did you understand this paragraph? इन्होंने समझाया तो बड़ा उस तरह है, लेकिन it's very difficult to understand this. What is the meaning of this paragraph? If you haven't, I can explain it to you.
Miss, it means this time the water has to lose like a lot of energy to freeze, which is not possible because the latent heat of vaporization of water is high. So it's almost impossible for the water to freeze, which is an advantage for the aquatic animals.
Okay. I will tell you what do you mean by this. Although I will try to explain it to you without wasting a lot of time. Okay? Now, you have studied in physics when you were doing thermal. Did you do thermal heat transfer in physics in O levels?
Yes.
Did you do conduction, convection, radiation? Yes, girls.
Yes, miss, we did.
Acha. Now see, when all liquids are heated, do they expand? Yes?
Yes, miss, did.
When liquids are heated, they expand. When liquids are cooled, they contract. ठीक है? लेकिन there is an exception to this rule. and that exception is known as the anomalous expansion of water. जो आपको अपनी screen पे नजर आ रहा है ना, it is known as the anomalous expansion of water. The meaning of anomalous is, anomalous word कहाँ से आया? Anomaly से. Anomaly का मतलब something very weird, very unusual. What's that unusual thing? That water जो है ना, वो एक temperature range है which is 0 to 4 degree Celsius and 4 degree Celsius to 0 degree Celsius. यानी water को अगर हम heat करते हैं ना from 0 to 4, होना तो उसे expand चाहिए लेकिन वो contract करता है. And when we cool the water from 4 degree Celsius to 0 degree Celsius, it should contract, but it expands. So this phenomenon, which you can see on the screen right now, in which when we heat water from 0 to 4, it should expand, but it contracts. And when we cool water from 4 to 0, it should contract, but it expands. So इस unusual या weird behavior of water को कहते हैं the anomalous expansion of water. Why does this happen? ठीक है, ये क्यों होता है? इसलिए कि water is a little bit different liquid, because देखो अब अगर हम कहते हैं ना, आपको पढ़ाया जाता है हमेशा फिजिक्स में भी और केमिस्ट्री में भी कि solids are denser than liquids and liquids are denser than gas. लेकिन ice तो solid है, लेकिन why does ice float in water? कभी सोचा है आप दोनों ने? Why does ice float on water?
Mr. Density of ice is lower than the density of water.
लेकिन ice तो solid है.
It's because the water, the hydrogen bond in the water is holding the water together. So ice is being pushed up, I think.
Yes, the hydrogen bonds are holding the water molecules together, so ice is pushed up. बिल्कुल सही, लेकिन actually इसका reason is because of the anomalous expansion of water. होता ये है कि this actually happens. Okay, this thing is the anomalous expansion of water, meaning 0 से 4 तक अगर आप water को लेके जाएंगे, इसको करना तो expand चाहिए, लेकिन ये होगा contract. जब 4 से आप ठंडा करेंगे पानी को और बर्फ बनाएंगे, it is cooling. Cooling में contraction होनी चाहिए, but the water expands. Because of this unique property of water, because of its anomalous expansion, what happens is that the ice becomes less dense. ठीक है? The ice becomes less dense, it expands, and thereby it floats on water. So what you can see in front of you, that I have tried to show you a lake in Antarctica. ठीक है? अब वो लेक जो अंटार्कटिका में है ना, विंटर्स में वो कवर हुआ है आइस से. Because ice is less dense, because it is expanded, because water expand कर रहा है. Water जब 4 से ठंडा होके 0 तक जा रहा है और आइस बना रहा है, तो वो expand कर रहा है. Expand होने की वजह से आइस हो जाएगा less dense and the ice will float on water. ठीक है? अच्छा, if we go deep down into a lake in Antarctica, we will see कि ice के नीचे बहुत सारे layers of water हैं, ठंडे ठंडे. For example, 0 के बाद 1 है, water at 1 degree Celsius, then water at 2 degree Celsius and 3 degree Celsius. ठीक है? As we move from 0 to 4, यहाँ देखते हैं क्या हो रहा है anomalous expansion में. 0 to 4 में जो है वो contraction हो रही है. तो जब कोई चीज contract होती है तो वो हो जाती है more dense. ठीक है? More dense हो जाती है. तो इसका क्या मतलब हुआ कि the least dense water which is in the form of ice is at 0. फिर उसके बाद 1 degree Celsius पे water होगा तो वो more dense होगा. 2 degree Celsius पे होगा तो वो और ज़्यादा dense होगा. 3 degree Celsius पे होगा तो और dense होगा, and so on. So this will enable all the living, all the life, aquatic life like fishes and all other, marine animals to live a life and escape themselves from dying. Why? Because they will sink down. ये सारे animals नीचे चले जाएंगे in the cold water and they will be protected from being in direct contact with the ice. Why? Because the ice will float on the top. Ice is at 0 degree Celsius, expanded, less dense, ठीक है? And the water which is below these layers of ice actually are arranged in increasing density. जैसे 1 degree Celsius का water थोड़ा सा dense है, फिर 2 degree Celsius का और dense है, फिर 3 का और है, फिर 4 का, फिर 5 का. So you will see that the water has arranged itself in layers of increasing density. The more the density, the more the water will contract. The lesser the density, the more the water will expand. And then because of expansion, the ice will float on water. I hope girls this is making sense. समझ आ रही है बात?
Yes, miss.
Yes, Alia?
Yes, miss.
ठीक है, अब ये जो पूरी बात है ना, अच्छा, did you guys ever study about the anomalous expansion of water in grade 8 या grade 9 में कभी पढ़ाया?
No, miss.
No, but basically the same phenomenon has been explained over here. The textbook that we were reading, हम ये पढ़ रहे थे ना. Now read this paragraph and this will make more sense to you. Read this, the one which I have encircled. Read it?
Yes, miss.
Acha, now tell me, state the property of water that allows each of the following A, B, and C to take place. Explain the importance of A, B, and C. Acha, what is the property of water that allows the cooling of the skin during sweating? Anybody can answer?
High specific heat capacity.
Cooling of skin during sweating, high specific heat capacity or high latent heat of vaporization?
Sorry, miss. High latent heat.
High latent heat of vaporization. ठीक है. What about transport of glucose and ions in a mammal? What's this property? Yes, Alia?
Miss, water is a solvent.
Water is a universal solvent. Very good. The third property, much smaller temperature fluctuations in lakes and oceans than in terrestrial land-based habitats. What's this property?
Miss, high specific heat capacity.
High specific heat capacity. Now, Alhamdulillah, you both of you have understood, right? Let's see if we have missed out on any topic from this chapter. Acha, water also has some more properties, which is cohesion and adhesion. Did you do cohesion and adhesion in O levels? What is cohesion? What is adhesion? If you haven't done,
Yes, miss. Miss, I think we did cohesion.
basically, cohesion means, let's suppose that this is a xylem vessel and the xylem vessel needs to pull up the water molecules, right? So the very reason that the xylem can pull up the water molecules against the gravity is that not only the water molecules are sticking to each other, okay, but they are also sticking to the wall of the xylem vessel. So the force by means of which they stick to each other, ye wala force, is known as cohesion. And this force of attraction by means of which the water molecule is sticking to the wall of the xylem vessel is known as adhesion. So the combined effects of cohesion and adhesion will help in the upward movements of the water against the gravity in the xylem vessel. So this is also one of the properties of water, right? Cohesion and adhesion. And this property is also known as capillary action. So had there been no cohesion and adhesion, the xylem vessel would not have been able to pull up the water. And since we know that water is a raw material for photosynthesis, तो फिर photosynthesis ही ना हो पाता. So this means that we can say that the property of cohesion and adhesion plays a very important role as far as photosynthesis is concerned, right? Because water is an essential raw material for photosynthesis. Achha. You can see the equation that you can see in front of you is the equation for photosynthesis. तो आपको नजर आ रहा है कि we need 6 carbon dioxide molecules and 6 water molecules to make 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules. Similarly, you've done biological molecules initially जब हम कर रहे थे, so to break maltose also we need water. तो water तो हमें हर चीज के लिए चाहिए. So you know water is an important reagent also in chemical reaction. Let me see. Yes, this is the last slide for this chapter. And then I'm just giving you 1 to 2 minutes to go through the slide, and then we will be starting a new chapter, right? And if there are any questions, you're free to ask. This concept matter. Yes, Alia and Amna.
Yes, I'm done reading.
There is actually one property which I did not mention, and that property is the high surface tension. Water molecules, when they stick to each other by means of hydrogen bonds, they create a high surface tension. So this property of water enables the aquatic animals like ponds, skaters to float on the surface of the water. Right? They float on the surface of water. And then there was one property which is that because of the fact that the insoluble non-polar molecules, they are pushed together, they try to group against each other or close to each other by means of hydrophobic interactions. So that is also possible because water is a polar molecule. And I think उसके अलावा हम बाकी सारे properties कर चुके हैं, right? We have done cohesion, adhesion, high specific heat capacity, high latent heat of vaporization, anomalous expansion of water, and the polarity of water, and the fact that water is a universal solvent. Any questions, Beta? I think both of you should be now ready to
themselves.
Very good.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Anything else, Beta? Amna? Anything else you want to add?
No, miss. It has an active site and works with a lock and key mechanism.
It has an active site. It works with the lock and key mechanism. Okay. Any other thing? Does it have a very specific shape?
Yes, miss.
Acha, is that shape complementary to the substrate molecule?
Yes, miss. The shape is the reason it works with a lock and key mechanism.
Are enzymes highly specific? Yes or no?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
Yes, miss.
And what about are enzymes? Do enzymes participate in the reaction or not?
Miss, they take part in a reaction by helping to speed up the metabolism, but they just come out like, they don't change their shape.
They don't change their shape. They are not changed. They remain unchanged, and they can be recycled. Can they be recycled again and again?
Yes, miss. As long
Yes.
as they're not denatured.
Are enzymes affected by extremes of temperature and pH?
Yes.
So of course they are affected. Okay. What sort of reactions do enzymes catalyze? Do they catalyze only anabolism, or do they catalyze catabolism also? I hope you know what anabolism and catabolism is. Yes, Amna, do you know what anabolism is? No? I think I've told you this before, but I'll repeat it once again. Now see, all metabolic reactions, all the reactions or chemical reactions within your body are known as metabolism. Okay? And then metabolism can be of two types. हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि केमिस्ट्री लैब में जो रिएक्शन हो रहा है ना वो मेटाबॉलिज्म है. मेटाबॉलिज्म मींस द रिएक्शंस विद इन द लिविंग बॉडी, चाहे वो बैक्टीरिया के अंदर का रिएक्शन हो या कहीं, लेकिन लाइफ के अंदर लिविंग चीज लिविंग थिंग में वो reaction हो, right? Now, metabolism can be of two types. It can be anabolism, meaning to make. It can be catabolism, meaning to break. Now, you tell me, Alia, this question is for you. Glucose plus glucose is equal to maltose. Anabolism or catabolism?
Miss catabolism.
Anabolism means to make, catabolism means to break. So, glucose plus glucose is equal to
Anabolism.
anabolism. Acha, maltose plus water is equal to glucose plus glucose. What is this?
Miss catabolism.
Catabolism. Okay, photosynthesis. Anabolism or catabolism? Photosynthesis.
Miss anabolism.
Anabolism. Digestion. Anabolism or catabolism? Digestion.
Miss catabolism.
Exactly, breaking. Okay, so enzymes can make and enzymes can break. It can do both things. Look at these various things or various properties of enzymes. This was a discussion that I had in my school with my AS students. So they came up with all these ideas and different properties of enzymes. Someone said they are biological catalysts. Do you think, guys, enzymes are globular proteins? Yes, Alia, are they globular proteins?
So if they have more than one polypeptide chains, they might be globular protein.
Globular में more than one की तो बात ही नहीं हो रही थी, Alia.
Sorry, miss, they might have a spherical shape, miss.
So do you think enzymes have a spherical shape?
Yes, miss, because they aren't arranged in straight chains, so they have a spherical shape.
अच्छा, अब एक बात बताओ, लास्ट ही क्लास में हमने जो एक्स्ट्रा क्लास थी उसमें डिस्कस किया था कि what was the there were I think 4 or 5 properties that I told you कि अगर मैंने ये word globular use किया तो आपके दिमाग में क्या क्या आना चाहिए? Come on, Alia, tell me. I say this is a globular protein. तो क्या क्या आना चाहिए दिमाग में?
So, miss, it should be spherical, it should be water soluble, and there will be polar groups on the outside, so it's hydrophilic on the outside and hydrophobic on the inside.
Okay, and you've missed one very important point. ठीक है, polar बाहर है, hydrophobic अंदर है, and you know it's tertiary also, it's globular also, it has a spherical shape, it's extensively folded. These kind of proteins जिसको हम globular कहते हैं, are they functional or are they structural?
Miss, they're functional.
So do you think enzyme is a functional protein?
Yes, miss, it does have a function. So it's
अब समझ आ रही है बात? ठीक है. In fact, let's go and see. क्या किया था हमने उस दिन सैटरडे वाले दिन की एक्स्ट्रा क्लास में कि we were discussing about globular proteins and we had, look here, what example is given for globular proteins? Look at the last 2 key points. What example of globular proteins is given to you?
It's enzymes, miss.
Enzyme. तो अब अगर मैं आपसे ये सवाल पूछूं ना कि are enzymes globular protein, तो आपका जवाब होना चाहिए yes, enzymes are globular proteins. ठीक है? They speed up chemical reactions. They remain unchanged. They are denatured at high temperature and pH. They can be reused again and again. They work by means of the lock and key hypothesis. They lower the activation energy of a reaction. Have you ever done this concept of activation energy? जी, आपको पहले करवाया है किसी ने कि what do you mean by activation energy?
Yes, miss.
No? अच्छा,
Miss, we did this in IGCS.
You did this. Activation energy is what, Amna?
Miss, it's the energy required to start the reaction.
Energy required to start a reaction. जैसे कि अगर मुझे अपनी गाड़ी को एक जगह से दूसरी जगह पहुंचाना है, so there are 2 ways. या तो मैं धक्का मार के पहुंचाऊं या तो मैं गाड़ी के अंदर सेल्फ घुमाऊं, ignition दूं गाड़ी को and the गाड़ी starts. ठीक है? Both ways I can move the car. So in the case where I have put the key inside the car and given ignition, I have lowered the activation energy, which means I have actually lowered the amount of the energy that was required to start the car. The same thing the enzymes do. They lower the activation energy needed to perform a certain reaction inside your bodies. Okay? किस किस तरह के reactions enzymes catalyze कर सकते हैं? They can catalyze many kinds of reaction. For example, they can synthesize macromolecules. Now when I say synthesize macromolecules, तो इसका मतलब है they can catalyze anabolism. Synthesis का मतलब making, and making means anabolism. Anabolism, they can rearrange molecules to form different ones. This is catabolism. They can sometimes transfer groups like phosphate groups to some other compounds. These are also some kinds of reaction. And there is one more thing. They can also catalyze detoxification reactions, which means they can help us in removing the toxins from our bodies. Acha. Did you ever do this reaction in any of your junior classes? I'm writing down a reaction and you tell me what it is. G. What reaction is this? Have you ever done this reaction before? Okay, Alia, tell me the name of this compound.
Is it hydrogen peroxide?
अच्छा, hydrogen peroxide. It's a very dangerous compound. बिल्कुल poison होता है, ठीक है? अच्छा, this poison is produced inside our body due to some chemical reaction. उसका end product होता है. And our body cannot tolerate its presence even for a second. So our body has an enzyme in the liver जिसका नाम है catalase. It's found in the liver of mammals. Liver में भी होता है, शायद muscles में भी होता है. This catalase has got the capability to break down hydrogen peroxide. You know how many molecules? I think 6 million molecules. 6 million molecules of hydrogen peroxide in a second into water and oxygen. So had there been no catalase inside our liver, तो हम इस poison से मर जाते, because it's a very highly toxic compound. ठीक है? So this means that enzymes also play a role in detoxification reaction. ये जो reaction है ना, वो detoxification reaction. Any questions? No? Read all the points which are given over here, and then you can ask me questions and I will discuss with you as well. When you're done reading, do let me know. Done? Are enzymes soluble in water? Yes, Alia?
Yes, Miss, they are soluble in water.
Are globular proteins soluble in water?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. Can we say enzymes have got their own precise 3D shape? Yes?
Yes, Miss, we can.
Achha. Can you tell me the reason, Alia, why does an enzyme have a 3D shape? And can you make a connection between this question and the structure of proteins? कि हम कहते हैं कि enzyme का एक बड़ा precise 3D shape है. So what is the connection between this statement and the structure of proteins?
Miss, because enzymes have a globular structure, which means they have a tertiary structure as well. So they are many polypeptide chains folded together, so they have a 3D structure.
One polypeptide chain, one, not many. One polypeptide chain folded by means of 4 kinds of bonds. What are the names of the bonds?
Miss, hydrogen bonds, hydrophobic bonds, ionic bond, and disulfide bonds.
Very good. All these bonds are playing a role in folding that one polypeptide. One, बार बार two आपको नहीं बोलना. एक ही polypeptide chain है. Sorry, I just ruined it. There's only one polypeptide chain. Let's say अगर ये एक polypeptide chain है, ठीक है? ये अब ऐसे ऐसे हो रही है. The reason why it's extensively folding and coiling is because of presence of all those bonds. उसकी वजह से इसका ऐसा globular shape हो जाता है, and then we say that the enzyme has a 3D shape, right? Then this is something new that was added to the syllabus, in which the examiner wants you to know that basically enzymes can be inside your cells or they can be outside your cells also. ठीक है? अच्छा, जितने भी enzymes आप लोगों ने O level में किए हैं ना, like pepsin, trypsin, amylase, lipase, you must have done these enzymes. These are all extracellular. They are outside the cell. Why are they outside the cell? Because they are found in your digestive juices, in your body fluids. Okay? Your tears also have an enzyme known as lysozyme. Lysozyme, right? It's found in the tears. The tear is also a secretion. Your digestive juices, your HCl, your intestinal juices, all are extracellular. ठीक है? अब तक आपने ये किए थे. But there are enzymes which are intracellular. And those you will do when we do protein synthesis. जब हम DNA करेंगे, तब मैं आपको बताऊंगी कि what is the meaning of intracellular enzymes. ठीक है? So you can have enzymes inside your cells and you can have them outside your cells. Those which are outside are extracellular. Those which are inside the cytoplasm or within the organelles are intracellular. And the example of intracellular is, हम करेंगे, कुछ examples हम अभी करेंगे, कुछ हम will do in A2, DNA polymerase, RNA polymerase, and ATP synthase, right? Or synthase or synthetase भी कहते हैं इसको. So you should know the difference between intracellular and extracellular enzyme. Okay. Look at this diagram and then explain this diagram to me. Amna, can you explain this diagram to me?
The enzyme
Loudly,
has a
loudly.
specific shape. The
Okay.
enzyme has a specific shape, which is complementary to the substrate or whatever product or whatever substance is breaking down, which is known as substrate. The enzyme has an active site, which is basically the part that's actually complementary to the substrate. The substrate and active site come into contact with each other, and the substrate is broken down to form the product.
Okay, so who's the lock and who's the key?
The active site is the lock and substrate is the key.
Okay. Can we say that the shape of the enzyme is complementary to the shape of the substrate?
Yes, miss.
Correct. Okay. Now, this is what you did in O levels or in IGCSE, and one step forward or an extension of the lock and key hypothesis is this is the lock and key hypothesis, and one step forward of the lock and key hypothesis is the induced fit hypothesis, in which the lock and key hypothesis was modified slightly, and it actually tells you that jab enzyme and substrate they try to fit each other, the enzyme slightly changes the shape. Slightly. A slight change to the shape of the active site takes place so as to bring a better fit and bring active groups in enzyme in proximity. Makes enzymes even more efficient. Sometimes the substrate itself may also change shape. इसका मतलब ये है कि, for example, this is your enzyme and this is your substrate. They are almost fitting each other. लेकिन हम चाहते हैं कि बिल्कुल ऐसा टाइट फिट हो जाए, right? When you want a tight fit, two things should happen. Number one, the active site should change the shape very slightly, थोड़ा सा. And sometimes the substrate should also change the shape slightly so that there's a very neat, complete, and tight fit between the enzyme and the substrate. So this hypothesis is known as the induced fit hypothesis, and it's nothing but an extension of the lock and key hypothesis. Okay? If you don't understand this, please ask me the question. Yes, Alia, are you understanding this?
Miss, so basically, the active site of the enzyme is changing its shape to
हाँ
fit the shape of the substrate.
हाँ मतलब बिल्कुल वैसे ही हो रहा है. सी यू कैन सी दिस डायग्राम ना. अब इसमें क्या होगा कि ये फिट तो हो जाएंगे, लेकिन यू वांटेड टू फिट इट मोर नाइसली, मोर नीटली. इनफैक्ट लेट्स लुक एट योर टेक्स्ट बुक. टेक्स्ट बुक को देख लेते हैं. I hope they have a diagram of the induced fit. So they don't have it.
Miss, what if what if two different substrates are almost really similar in shape, but they're two different substrates, but they're still really very similar in shape? Won't the enzyme adjust its active site according to the other substrate that it's not supposed to work on? Because there's just a slight difference.
Very relevant question asked. The question is, what if two substrates have a very similar shape? Which substrate will the enzyme choose? In that case, the enzyme will choose a substrate which is in a higher concentration. Does that make sense?
Is higher constitution as in?
Higher concentration means uska level ज़्यादा होगा आपके blood plasma.
Oh, okay.
ठीक है? It's like that. And this concept is actually taught together with competitive inhibitors of enzymes. So we'll do that topic. वो आपके इसी चैप्टर का एक टॉपिक है. बट जो बात अभी आई थिंक आलिया को नहीं समझ आ रही है, आई थिंक सो आलिया, आई जस्ट रिपीट इट फॉर यू. आई विश आई हैव अ डायग्राम. हो सकता है आगे की स्लाइड में डायग्राम हो कि सी whatever you did in lock and key hypothesis, induced fit भी बिल्कुल उसी तरह ही है. ये बिल्कुल ऐसे ही है कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल you want these two pieces to fit into each other. When we make a jigsaw puzzle, जब हम jigsaw puzzle बनाते हैं और जब Lego बनाते हैं ना, तो कभी कभी हम इस तरह से फिट करते हैं ना puzzles को कि वो लूजली फिट हो जाते हैं, लेकिन एक तरीका होता है ना उसको बहुत टाइट फिट करने का. तो टाइट फिट करने के लिए हम उसको बहुत करीब लेके आते हैं, राइट, ताकि वो एक दूसरे के साथ टाइटली फिट हो जाए. सो इंड्यूस फिट का यही मतलब है कि in order to have a really nice and tight fit between the substrate and the enzyme changes very slightly its active site. कभी कभार substrate भी अपना shape change कर लेता है so that they can actually come together very neatly. Let me see if I have a diagram.
But Miss,
जी बेटा.
Miss, last year we learned that the shape of the active site it's specific because of the proteins, because there's a specific sequence of amino acids, which makes it so specific. But then, in the case of the induced fit mechanism, it basically means that the sequence of amino acids is changing.
No, it's not changing. The sequence is not changing. I think it's just folding in a certain manner. It's just the folding.
Okay.
हाँ, it's just the folding, and there's another thing also जो आपको O level में नहीं पढ़ाई थी. वो ये नहीं पढ़ाई, क्या चीज नहीं पढ़ाई थी कि आपको ये नहीं बताया गया था O level में कि what is that force of attraction between an enzyme and a substrate? It's actually hydrogen bonds. ठीक है? हम जब कहते हैं ना कि a substrate shape is complementary to the shape of the active site और फिर एक enzyme substrate complex बनता है, तो who joins them together basically? क्या join करता है? इन दोनों के बीच में बहुत सारे temporary hydrogen bonds होते हैं. ठीक है, तो जब हम कहते हैं ना कि इंड्यूस फिट हो रही है, तो मे भी हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड ज्यादा बन जाते होंगे, मे भी थोड़ा सा एक्टिव साइट फोल्ड कर लेता होगा, है ना, बट द सीक्वेंस, द प्राइमरी स्ट्रक्चर रिमेन्स द सेम. ठीक है, वी वोंट से कि जो है ना वो एंजाइम का कोई प्रोटीन स्ट्रक्चर चेंज हो रहा है, सेम ही है. मे बी द नंबर ऑफ हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड्स माइट बी डिफरेंट, कुछ और हाई लेवल की कोई मॉलिक्यूलर केमिस्ट्री होगी जो कि डिटेल्स आपको बताई नहीं है, बट आई कैन फाइंड आउट फॉर यू एंड यू कैन सी के हाँ ये तो वही चीज है, इट्स अ रेपिटेशन. हाँ, रीड दिस, द एंजाइम सबस्ट्रेट कॉम्प्लेक्स. कैसे बनता है एंजाइम सबस्ट्रेट कॉम्प्लेक्स? गो थ्रू दिस. Yes, Alia, what did you understand by this slide?
So it's basically saying that the substrate collides with the enzyme, which causes it to bind with the active site and form the enzyme substrate complex.
Complex. So it says that enzyme substrate complex आपका बनता है by the formation of hydrogen bonds between the R groups of the enzyme. So do you think enzymes have R groups?
Yes, miss, they do have.
हाँ, they do have. अच्छा, ये जो R groups की बात हो रही है, are these R groups which face outwards और या फिर वो हैं जो face inwards हैं?
So I think they face outwards because then that's how they'll bond with the substrate.
Exactly, exactly. Very good. So these are those R groups that face outwards and they have to be hydrophilic क्योंकि enzyme का जो बाहर का environment है ना, it is facing the aqueous exterior of your body fluids. और अंदर से enzyme जो है जिस तरह से वो curl हुआ हुआ है ball की तरह, it's curling because all the hydrophobic groups are pointing inwards and all the hydrophilic groups are pointing outwards. तो जो बाहर वाले ग्रुप्स हैं वो आराम से हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड्स बना लेंगे सबस्ट्रेट के साथ. एंड दिस कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्मेशन इज नोन एज एन एंजाइम सबस्ट्रेट कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्मेशन. ठीक है. एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इंटरैक्शन between the R groups of the enzyme and substrate atoms, इस interaction की वजह से क्या होगा कि the activation energy of the reaction is lowered. Either the enzyme will be catalyzing breaking of bonds or making of bonds. With the formation of the enzyme product complex, product leaves the active site, enzyme molecule remains unchanged, and it is ready to be recycled to bind to another substrate. One or two more products will be formed. और इसकी सबसे बेहतरीन जो तरीका है ना to remember is this diagram. This diagram is telling you a lot. So just look at this diagram very carefully. In fact, spend 2 to 3 minutes to look at this diagram. Learning outcome. We stated that enzymes are globular proteins that catalyze reactions inside cells. So hence they are intracellular. The examples of DNA polymerase, RNA polymerase, and ATP synthetase was given to you. Or they are secreted outside the cells like all the digestive enzymes. ठीक है, जो आपकी secretions में हैं. Then we try to explain, we try to understand the mode of action of enzymes in terms of all these keywords. These keywords जो आपको नजर आ रहे हैं ना, let me just shade them for you. You have to use these keywords while attempting a question on enzymes. Active site, enzyme substrate complex, lowering of the activation energy, enzyme specificity, including the lock and key hypothesis and the induced fit hypothesis. ठीक है, ये दो जो है ना, these are the two learning outcomes that we have covered today, and inshallah then we'll be doing these two learning outcomes, investigating the progress of enzyme catalyzed reaction and this, right? Just a minute. Okay, go through this as well, beta. 1 minute is left, so I would like you to go through this last slide also. Sometimes you are asked this question in exams that why do you need enzymes, right? Or explain what do you mean by lowering of activation energy. So you would say that enzymes are actually increasing the rate of the reaction, the speed of the reaction, right? Why? Because they are lowering that minimum amount of energy that is required to convert the substrate into the product. अगर आपसे कोई activation energy की definition पूछता है, so you can say that the activation energy is defined as the minimum energy required to convert substrate into products. Usually कौन provide करता है activation energy? Heat provide करता है. लेकिन अब जैसे for example हम खाना खा रहे हैं, right? And we want to burn, our body wants to burn or oxidize the food. We can't just lit up our body on fire. इस तरह से अगर हो तो फिर हमारे तो कानों से धुएं निकलें, right, to digest food. But the enzymes can manage all this very neatly and smoothly and efficiently. आराम से वो catalyze कर लेते हैं reaction को without the need to produce so much amount of heat energy. अगर इतनी ज़्यादा heat energy produce होगी तो it will be detrimental for our body as well, right? The body temperature, again, there's a reason. Why do we need to lower this activation energy by enzymes? Because the body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius, we need to keep it constant. It's not enough to give this activation energy to most metabolic reactions. How do enzymes lower the activation energy? They lower it by holding and interacting with the substrates by means of hydrogen bonds. ये बड़ा ही important point है. I will be sharing this slide with you. In fact, I'm writing down very important on this, so that when you are revising enzymes, you should go through this very thoroughly. तो आपसे कोई पूछे कि enzyme कैसे करता है lower activation energy, तो आप बोलोगे कि it holds or interacts with the substrates in a specific way, and that specific way is making of hydrogen bonds. So the reaction becomes more rapid, और वो आराम से हो सकता है at a much lower temperature as compared to if you have no enzymes in our body. Are you understanding this slide, both of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so I think it's enough for today. And inshallah, we will be continuing on Wednesday, right?